Have you ever sat outside, just listening to the sounds of nature? Have you ever listened to the crackling of a fire, the howling of the wind, all by yourself? Have you ever sat there, listening to nature, and wondered, what is it trying to say? Ladies and enemies, I give you... The fire crackles 3 times, the howling of the wind lowers in pitch. The fire crackles thrice more, then twice. The howling of the wind grows quiet for a second, before quickly lowering in pitch. The fire crackles 4 more times, then a distant bird sings a note. The bird is echoed twice, then sings a longer tune. The fire crackles 4 more times, and the wind begins to thump on the trees. The fire crackles once, and the wind returns to thumping. Then the fire ends it off with one final crackle. Which of course translates to, every sound is a poem. Easyap is the language I made with the help of a few friends for Agmashwa's Cursed Conlang Circus 3. The idea for this language comes from a somewhat complicated place. Basically, I had my friend Waller in the course, and not that many doesn't actually exist, and they made everything up as named after something. So every sound is a poem is basically an in-universe conlang. You could ignore all the lore. I designed this language primarily for CCC3. The main purpose of this language is to be able to turn any sound into readable text. Specifically, it's meant for natural sounds, like the howling of the wind or the crackling of a fire. Theoretically, it's able to translate any sound, but it's best used to translate the sounds of nature. This is my first time ever making a full conlang. I've dabbled before, but I've never finished the language. I've also never studied linguistics. Pretty much all of my linguistics knowledge comes from watching all of Conlang Critic and just absorbing knowledge through osmosis. And I'm recording all of this while sick, so sorry if the audio quality is bad. Now let's get to explaining the language, starting with the phonemes. Easyap's phonemes fall into 3 categories: drones, pulses, and snaps. Drones are the changes in a constant sound, like the wind howling becoming quieter. The different types of drones are as follows: a droning sound quieting or stopping for a short time, a droning sound quieting or stopping for a long time, a droning sound loudening for a short time, a droning sound loudening for a long time, a thumping sound of drone repeatedly changing in volume or pitch, the droning lowering in pitch, and the droning raising in pitch. Pulses are erratic sounds that start and stop with variable timing. There are only 2 kinds of pulses, short and long. Keep in mind they do have to last for some amount of time, so that you don't confuse them with the next category, snaps. Snaps are a number of sudden noises in quick succession. They range from 1 to 5. They're transcribed by writing the number of snaps as a number. Altogether, there are 14 phonemes. Now, it's time to talk about words and sentences. This poses somewhat of a challenge. Since we want to be able to translate anything into a readable sentence, we need to make sure that any combination of characters will result in something that makes grammatical sense. We can't rely on a single character to separate words or sentences, since we can't guarantee that sound will exist. We can't even rely on a lack of sounds to separate things, since the soundscape could be too noisy for a silence. I ended up going with making every word have exactly 3 characters. This isn't the best solution, since it limits the word list to only 2,744 words, but I have a few solutions to that you'll see shortly. We also can't just use a regular word list. If we let a sentence be made up of random words, we could end up with a sentence that has only verbs, only adjectives, or anything that just wouldn't make sense. To solve this, words will be different depending on their position in a sentence. We'll have 3 different word lists, 1 for nouns, 1 for verbs, and 1 for adjectives. So if the droning gets quieter for a short time 3 times in a row, which looks like this, it could mean bush if it was a noun, embrace if it was a verb, or amusing if it was an adjective. This ends up tripling the word count to 8,232, which is already much better. Now for the actual word order, I want it to be symmetrical, so it could either be SVO or OVS. There's really no difference, so I decided to... So we're going with OVS. This means that the sentence structure of the language is adjective of object, object, tense, verb, adjective of subject, subject. There are no adverbs, and every noun must have an adjective. The forced adjectives will help with that vague poem vibe we're looking for. They'll also help with the effect of word count, since if you count the adjective and noun as the same word, then there are 7,529,000 words. This hard word order, combined with all the words being exactly 3 characters, means that every sentence in ISAP will be exactly 16 characters. That explains the basic word order, but you may have heard me mention tenses. Each verb will have a tense particle attached to it to signify its tense. There are 14 tenses, one for each phoneme. The tenses are future, future false, past, past false, present, present false, future uncertain false, past uncertain false, present uncertain false, constant, and constant false. We need the tense to include things like false and unlikely because there's no other space in the sentence for those. Let's do a quick example before we continue. I've been taking these notes every time I'm sitting in bed and can't sleep. I just open my window and listen. They should be perfect for translation. Here I've transcribed that first line. We've got 2 sentences. We go adjective, noun, tense, verb, adjective, noun, plug everything into the word list. That gives us fatherly parts have created instantaneous normalcy. We think this might be trying to say that paternalistic elements may be what created traditions. That's pretty interesting, but let's see what the second sentence says. Same process again gives us arrogant influences spell accelerated bits. I think this is something about influencers boasting about their internet speed. Not sure how it relates to the first sentence, but, they could be separate. Alright, break's over, it's time to talk about names. To translate a name into every sound as a poem, simply try to describe that person or thing as best you can. My name can be translated directly one-to-one into ASAP, so it's not really the best example. I'm literally 3 snaps followed by a short pulse and then a long pulse and then 4 snaps and then 2 more snaps and then joining pitch lowers. A better example might be my friend Ollie, who I'd describe as this, which means a cute girl. And with that, it's time for the translation. Here's the full grid of option 1, and I will now attempt to pronounce the first sentence. Beep. Whoop, 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 whoop. Beep. 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 Yeah, as you can probably tell, this language wasn't exactly designed for human pronounceability. It's the best at what it was designed for, and I'm really proud of it. I had a lot of fun making it, and I think it's pretty good for my first ever finished conlang. I'm almost definitely going to try my hand at the next one, but I just have to admit I'm much more likely to try again if I do well in this one, so if you want me to go next time, you better vote me highly!